Hello, and welcome to pfSense Bootcamp, a series of videos aimed at those seeking proficiency in installing, deploying, and configuring pfSense. And in this video, which is going to be the first in two videos about Captive Portal, I'm going to provide an overview of Captive Portal and also demonstrate how to set up Captive Portal in pfSense without authentication and with user manager authentication and also with voucher authentication. Um, Radius server authentication is a little bit more involved since, well, it involves setting up a Radius server. So I'm going to save that for the second video. But we will cover three different forms of pfSense captive portal configuration in this video, as I said, um, without authentication and with user manager and voucher authentication. So just to provide a brief overview, Captive Portal involves directing your users to a landing web page, and this is either a layer 2 or layer 3 entity, and the web page may require authentication, payment, and or acceptance of an end user license agreement or EULA. And Captive Portal is often used with open wireless networks, though it doesn't necessarily have to involve wireless networks. But often we see it in especially in commercial settings where a business wants to provide wireless internet access to their customers, and they direct them towards a captive portal landing page where they either just have to accept the terms of service or of the network, or they actually have to provide a password or username and password, or but yeah, we usually see this in the context of a wireless network. And captive portal in pfSense, prior to pfSense 2.0, captive portal could only be implemented on one user, on one network in pfSense, but now it can be set up, it can be configured to so that more than one network has a captive portal. So, and we're going to see how this works in a minute. And as I said, there are different variations on captive portal and pfSense. There's no authentication, user manager authentication, voucher authentication, and Radius, and we'll get to Radius in the second video. But right now, we're going to go right into our virtual machine, and we're logged into our pfSense system, and right now we have I'm showing the dashboard, and we have three networks here. We have the WAN network and the LAN network, which is what this virtual machine is accessing the using to access the network. And there's DMZ, which will come into play later on. But first, we want to set up our captive portal. So to begin, I'm going to go to service. Well, first let me show some of the login pages. You first need to have you're going to need login pages if you're going to set up a captive portal. I'm going to show what some of these login pages look like. For here's one that just doesn't have a username password option. It just allows you to accept the terms of service. And here it just says clicking on accept indicates acceptance of our terms of service. And then you click on accept, and you would pass through the captive portal. And so for username and password authentication, we need to have a form that has options for that. So I have another page here. I think I went past it here. Oh, okay, here. Okay, this is I called portal with login, and here you see it has enter your username, and it has a edit box for the username, and enter your password, and edit box for the password. It says clicking on login indicates acceptance of our terms of service, and there's a login button. And then since there's an option for vouchers, and I'll explain what vouchers are later in the video. Here's one that just says input your voucher code, and you would input the alphanumeric voucher code here, and then click on the OK button. And we also need pages for authentication errors. So I think I should show what those look like too. If somebody types in an invalid username and password combination, they would reach this page, and portal message is something that's returned from the user manager, and then it'll give you a chance to enter your username and password again. Then there's one for an authentication error page for voucher login, where it prints the portal message error message, and allows you to input your voucher code again. So let's move to captive portal configuration here. Going back to the pfSense web GUI, and I'm going to go to Services and Captive Portal. And you can see right now we have nothing set up for Captive Portal. So we want to set something up for Captive Portal. So I'm going to click on the green Add button here, and we have to give it its own name. So let's assume that we're setting it up for a coffee shop. So I'll just do coffee shop, coffee_shop, and captive. For the description, I'll do captive portal for coffee shop customers, and we'll do save and continue. Click on the green save and continue button, and it gives us this message here. It says, don't forget to enable the DHCP server on captive portal interface. Make sure that the default maximum DHCP lease time is higher than the hard timeout entered on this page. Also, the DNS forwarder resolver must be enabled for DNS lookups for unauthenticated clients to work. So the warning, the first warning seems pretty obvious, but we should have DHCP set up on the interface, on the captive portal interface. Otherwise, they're not going to get a DHCP. They're not going to be assigned an IP address, and then even if we set up captive portal correctly, it's not going to work. And then make sure the default max DHCP lease time is higher than the hard timeout. So we don't want them losing their DHCP leases before the hard timeout period for captive portal. And the other thing that they want us to know is that we should set up the DNS forwarder resolver. And so there's one option here for enable captive portal checkbox, so I'm going to check that. And now we get a whole bunch of other options. Interfaces. I want to set it up on the LAN interface, but you can set it up on more than one interface by holding on the shift key and clicking on additional entries here. But I just want it set up on LAN. And then we have different options here. We have maximum concurrent connections from one IP address, idle timeout, which is the amount of time after which clients will be disconnected after a period of inactivity, and then there's the hard timeout, which is that whether or not there's inactivity, you'll be disconnected after this amount of period. And then there's other things like pass-through credits per MAC address. So you might get disconnected, and so if in that case, without pass-through credits, you'd be forced to log in again when you got reconnected. So this allows you to reconnect a certain number of times without authentication if your MAC address is already authenticated. So, or if the network interface you're using to connect the MAC address was authenticated. And there's a waiting period to restore pass-through credits, and says clients will have their available pass-through credits restored to the original account after this amount of time since using the first one. And I won't cover all the options here, but we'll scroll down here. And so first I want to show authentication with no authentication. So it will prompt you to accept the terms of service, but otherwise it won't ask for a username and password or anything. So I'm going to click on no authentication here in the radio buttons here. And then we need a portal page. So I'm going to click the browse button here, and we have my portal page for just no authentication was called portal.html. So I'm going to click that, and I don't need an authentication error page contents, or since there's no authentication. I don't need a logout page because didn't enable logout. The logout was another option here. Yeah, there's an option here here's another. I should mention this because this is here, enable logout pop-out window, so you can enable a user to explicitly log out if you want, with this checkbox. And here's something that's worth mentioning too. Here's per user bandwidth restriction. You can enable user bandwidth restriction, and you can have a default download and upload in kilobits per second. And this is one way that you can prevent somebody from just sitting in the parking lot connecting to your wireless network and downloading a movie or something. So that can be helpful. And I think I have it set up the way I want. So, there is one more thing. There's an image in my captive portal page. So let me just so I'm going to have to upload that image. Otherwise, it's not going to show up when I load the captive portal page. So let me just click save here. And so now we have our coffee shop captive portal for coffee shop customers. I'm just going to go in here and go to the file manager here. So I clicked on, just to clarify what I did here, I clicked on the pencil here for edit zone. So clicked on that, and I clicked on file manager, and now I'm going to click on add. I'm going to upload an image here. So let me see. I'm going to click on the browse button, and I want to upload this captive portal logo.png. So because that appears in my captive portal page. I'm going to click on the upload button now, and now the captive portal logo has been uploaded. Okay, now I want to just to force because I'm still connected to the network now, so just to force it to make me use the captive portal login. I'm just going to do sudo ifconfig eth0 down. So that will take the network down. So I'm going to type the sudo password, the super user password. And then I'm going to do sudo ifconfig eth0 up to reconnect to the network. Okay, now to demonstrate the captive portal, all we do is go to any web page. So I could go to google.com. And it will force me to use the captive portal page. Go through the captive portal. Let me just make sure that I'm connected to the right network here. Okay, yep, I have an IP address here on the LAN network. Let me just make sure that I'm loading the right page here. I'm going to go www.google.com. Okay, here, yeah, there we go. Okay, now we have the captive portal page. So there we go. Clicking on accept indicates acceptance on our terms of service, and it shouldn't. And once I click on accept, it should redirect me to Google. Yep. Okay. So now now if we go back to the web GUI of pfSense, if we do click on status and then captive portal, it should show one user, and it does. It shows a user logged in with my MAC address, unauthenticated, and the time that the session started. And I can also disconnect this user if I want to, which I won't because I don't want to disconnect myself. So this demonstrates captive portal usage without authentication, but this is problematic for, well, it could be problematic for several reasons. It doesn't provide any security, so somebody could sit in the parking lot of our business and use our network. So we might want to have a username and password. So there's an option here: local user manager or vouchers. So again, I'm going to cover user manager authentication first, and then we'll do vouchers. So to use the user manager, first you have to have users. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to System and User Manager. I'll click on that, and we'll open this up in a separate tab so we can go back to the captive portal page when necessary. So we want to create a new, well, actually, let's set up a user group. So I'm going to click on the Groups tab here. I'm going to click on the green Add button, and we'll set up a group name called Captive Portal. And we'll scope local, and we'll just say captive portal users, and I'll click on the blue save button here, and we'll go to the users tab. So I'll click on users, and we'll do add, and we'll create a user. We'll create a user called Homer. We'll type a password, our super secret password, and we'll type a full name, Homer Simpson, and expiration. We won't set an expiration date, and we'll make it a member of the captive portal group. And we we won't create a user certificate now. We might want to do that later. We won't enter any SSH keys for this user, and we'll click on the blue Save button. And so that creates a user called Homer Simpson. Just be aware that, let me just look at, if you go back to the Groups tab, if we click on Edit Now for captive portal users, there's now assigned privileges, and we can assign different privileges to groups. So here's a whole bunch of different privileges: web config, VPN, and system diagnostics. All these different privileges that we can assign to it that didn't show up when we first created the group. So just be aware of that if you're setting up a group. So we've done what we need to do here. We've created a user. So let's go back to, well, actually, you can just close this out. Let's go back to the captive portal page. And now we're going to set it up for local user manager / vouchers authentication. And our portal page is going to change because we need to have authentication, a portal with login as our login page. So we'll do portal with login.html. We also need an authentication error page. So browse that. And we'll do authentication error with login.html. And again, we don't need a logout page because I didn't enable logout. But this should be set up the way we want it. So I'm going to click on the blue Save button at the bottom here. Okay, now we have captive portal for coffee shop customers set up with username and password authentication. I'm going to go to status and captive portal, and I'm just going to disconnect myself from the network so that it'll force me to use the captive portal again. So I'm going to disconnect this user. Click on OK. And it shouldn't even reload this page because now we're disconnected. Or actually, yes, it did. Okay, let's go and let's try to access google.com again. And it redirects us to our new captive portal page. So wants a username and password, so we type in Homer. And let me just I'll type in the wrong password just so that we can see what the authentication error page looks like. So, and make sure the authentication error page works. So just click on login. It says Firefox can't establish a connection to the server. So resend. Invalid credentials specified. So let me do, this time we'll do the right username and password. Homer. And we'll do the password. And I'll click on OK. I'm not sure why that happened. But now you can see after I reload it, it gives me Google. So, and let me just go back to, let's go back to our status page here. And it's doing that again. So we'll do, and it looks like Homer is now logged in to the captive portal. So then there's one other option that I'm going to cover in this video, and that'll probably be it for this video. So we go to Services, Captive Portal, and Edit Zone here. So you see that this second option here is for local user manager vouchers. What vouchers does is now you set, if you have a username and password, just a password, there's problems with that. I mean, it's better than no security at all, but it can get complicated. It might not be the optimal solution if you have if you want to hand out temporary access to a number of people. So let's say you have customers who need to have access to your network for at most a few hours or maybe even a few days, but not more than that. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you could create some kind of temporary access where they have a passcode that expires after a certain amount of time, and then they have to get another passcode. Well, that's what vouchers does, and now we'll show how to implement vouchers. So first we go to the vouchers tab here. So we go to we click on that, and it says enable the creation, generation, and activation of roles of vouchers. So we check this checkbox, and it gives us a number of options here: voucher public key, voucher private key, number of roll bits, ticket bits, and checksum bits. So I'm going to just go with the default options for this. And I'll just click on save here. And so now we've enabled the creation of vouchers, but we haven't actually created any voucher roles. So in order to do that, we need to click on the green add button here. And it says enter the roll number found at the top of the generated printed vouchers. So I'm going to click on, since I already created some voucher rolls, I'm going to make this roll number 2. Minutes per ticket. Defines the time minutes the user is allowed access. So let's assume that we want to allow the user to have access for 6 hours. So 6 times 60 is 360. So 360 minutes will be 6 hours. It says enter the number of vouchers found at the top of the generate printed vouchers. We'll put 1023 since that's the maximum number. Roll of vouchers test. We'll just say here, and so that's a comment. This is ignored by the system. I'll click on the blue save button, and it should generate a voucher roll. So now we have our roll of vouchers, but we need to gain access to it. So there's an icon here, export vouchers for this roll to a CSV file. So actually, I think we can. This is edit voucher roll, so we can click this icon here. This doesn't let us do anything. Okay, so let's go back. So we'll export. I'm going to click on the icon export vouchers for this roll to a CSV file. And it says, would you like to save this file? So I'll click on save. So this should save our CSV file in downloads directory. So let me just click on that, and there's an option to open with LibreOffice Calc, so I'll do that. And you can see we have a roll of vouchers here. So we can use any of these to gain access to our network once we set up the captive portal. So let me just minimize this. We'll go back to our browser, and we'll go back to configuration. So I think there's one more thing that we have to do. We have to change the we have to set up the Oh, it's two things actually. We have to set up the portal page and the authentication error page. So let me do that. Portal page and authentication error. So click on the browse button here, and we have a page portal_voucher.html. So select that. There's an authentication auth error _voucher. So I'll select that. And so now we should be ready to go. So scroll down and click on the save button. Again, I'm going to kick myself off the network. Let's see, status, captive portal. Yeah. So we'll kick Homer off the network, disconnect this user. And let's try to go to Google again. So www.google.com, and this is input your voucher code. So we need a voucher code. So I'm going to our CSV file. I'll just select one of these, and we want to copy this. It's not letting me copy. All right, here, copy. And to paste. So now we pasted the voucher code into the browser. And it allows us access to the network again. So, and this should be good for 6 hours. So again, we showed in this video, we gave an introduction to Captive Portal, and we showed how to set up Captive Portal with no authentication, user manager authentication, and authentication with vouchers. And in the next video, we'll cover authentication with a Radius server, which will also involve setting up a free Radius server to act as our Radius server for authentication. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next video.